dear colleagues, dear students, dear friends, we are launching the public event of a weekly master workshop which has the title Athens Futures and was organized together with the Chair of Sustainable Urbanism of the Technical University of Munich and the School of Architecture of the National Technical University of Athens in collaboration with the School of Architecture of the University of Thessaloniki, Patras and Chania. We have had a hard week working in 6 places, 6 sites all around the city center of Athens, putting together our, let's say, initiative and our inventiveness to be effective as academy, in a collaboration, in the future, a tentative collaboration with praxis and administration. I'm not going to say more. I will invite Mark Michaeli, who is the Chair of Sustainable Urbanism and Dean of Studies at the Technical University of Munich, to say his own word on this public event.
Yeah, thank you, Panayotis, and thank you everybody for joining tonight. As said, this is a joint project. We're now running for more than 2 years between Technical University and of Athens and in Munich. And we invited a lot of colleagues from Greece and said, hey, please, will you show up in this workshop with your students? Because what we do is actually not only talking about the city in an academic background, but we also want to find out whether we, with our ideas, can contribute to the change of the city. So it's not really a closed discussion, and this is why we have this format here in the lecture hall, this fantastic place. I see it for the first time in this event. But also we are broadcasting it through YouTube, and I hope that in the future you might have your own spring-off projects at the other universities and really working on this topic, because it's important to make the cities more sustainable and to transform them. And we as architects and planners have our ideas, and why should we be part of it as students, as academics? So thank you for having us here for this 1 week's workshop. It was a really great workshop. For tonight we have a program where we first want to see what the students produce, what their ideas about transforming Athens into a more sustainable future is. Then a second part will be a podium discussion between colleagues contributing to the field, and then in the end there is a guest star, because we ask in the first session, what is the city we should look at if we think about maybe what could happen in Athens as a good reference example? And a lot of people said we should have a look to Barcelona, and this is why we have Josep Bohigas here. I'm very happy that you could make it from Barcelona. I know that you have a big event there. He's actually the one in charge for this transformation in Barcelona. I hope that we can learn from your ideas in a later keynote speech. And the best of the evening is then the opening of the exhibition and some drinks afterwards. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to discuss with you this evening and further on in maybe next events between the different universities. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Mark. Please, first group of students take the floor to present your contribution.
Everyone, we are Katarina, Gina, Nicolau, and me, myself. I'm Renee from Munich, and we're now happy to present you our vision for the site Alexandra's Avenue. It's a very interesting site on the bottom of the Lykabetos Hill in the center of Athens. And yeah, at this site you find all the many important typologies of a city. Like you have a huge police station, you have a justice court, you have the stadium of Panathinaikos, which will move in the near future. So it's a very vibrant place, although what we find out also on our site visit. Okay, yes, sorry. Yeah, what this site is missing, what we think, is kind of the human scale. You have a lot of huge buildings, and of course you have Alexandra's Avenue, which is one of the most important traffic lines crossing the city. it's good, you need all those typologies to make the city of Athens work. Still, for the individual inhabitant who is in that area, he's kind of lacking spatial qualities, and this is where our project was starting, and we thought about a new urban green centrality for this area, and we really tried to kind of defragmentize this this area, and how this work, Nicolau will explain you more in detail.
So our main idea was the extension of Lycabettus Hill, that going through the neighborhood of Alexandra and the highway of Alexandra. It's trying, we are using this movement of the extension as a cause to link different greener areas to a new greener centrality. And this greener urban centrality is based on 4 specific zones, which are divided in different uses. First of all, we have the refugee housing, where we have the refugee complex, which we get advantage of as a housing for students that they are studying in Athens. And after that, there is the second zone, where the Panathinaikos Stadium is living of it and is living in a green urban area. What we try to do there is a multifunctional square, where we connect this square with the new refugee housing, not for refugees, sorry, for students, yes, with a bridge. And we try in this multifunctional square to have uses where people can appropriate the space there. In Zone 3, there is, in the area, there are a lot of public schools, and we use it more as a sport facility and as a school where the kids of the school can play, and with a different timeline based on the day. For example, in the morning we have the kids of the school, but after that the place is referring to people who stays in the neighborhood. You can find sport facilities and
maybe also to add something, we had to think about 3 keywords when presenting our project, and our 3 keywords were remembrance, defragmentation, and leisure. And just to really quick explain, remembrance, for example, I told you the Panathinaikos Stadium is going to move, but still the sport culture, many people go there, you cannot move the culture, so we really try to keep something of that culture. So what you see, one of our architectural intervention was to keep a part of the stadium, which is the gate 13, where the Panathinaikos fans and the hooligans really enter the stadium. We keep this and use it as a starting point for our kind of connection bridge, which is on the upper street level, connecting the pedestrians and making this connection over the Alexandra's Avenue.
Yes, and Zone 3, which I mentioned about school facilities and all of that, and sport facilities, are more for an educational role in this area, and try to link different greener areas or different residents there to this public area. In Zone 4, we have a high planning park, which is more about the resident that stays in the city, and it's referring to the residential buildings there, and it's more private for for the people of the neighborhood. So, after all, what we try to do is a linking through the urban network, trying to upgrade in a more sustainable way of living by fixing and creating new passages through the city, making a more walkable area with a fast and slow mobility. We try to link these areas like Kolonaki behind the Lycabettus with the refugee complex and the other areas through the other mountain that is Turkovounia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we are the group that has worked in Kypseli district. Kypseli can be considered as a generic Athenian district, and once there, someone can easily experience the difficulties and the deteriorated bourgeois district of the previous century. However, the glamour of that era can still be found in the buildings, still standing there, in the main boulevard now for the citizens to walk and go around, have fun, Phokionos Negri, where a lot of tall trees stand and smaller ones. We found it very important to stand to Phokionos and make it, enforce it in a sense of clearing everything that can be considered as weak, like the slow trees. And our main point was this kind of solutions.
So the historic neighborhood, once flourishing, is now stagnated due to untreated problems. Once there, someone can easily perceive an offensive infrastructure of the district. Small sidewalks, car-filled streets, and hardscapes are now defining issues of that plague Kypseli. The absence of greenery is now intensifying the ever-growing heat island effect, while hard surfaces suffocate the land, disrupting the natural flow of rainwater. As a result, extremely high temperatures during the summer make the public space unbearable for residents and passers-by. For Phokionos Negri, which is a great importance for the area, is in many ways, since it's the only green large lung of Kypseli. Emphasizing on this issue, the area, it's obvious that even though there is plenty of open spaces, there are many obstacles, like small fences, minimizing the usable areas. Hardscapes are once more eminent problem, as well as decorative gardens that cannot manage rainwater. Lastly, buildings and backyards remain deteriorated.
So even though Kypseli has a lot of problems, there are many opportunities regarding the sustainability of the area, especially in Phokionos Negri. Due to the great size of the site, it would be a nice opportunity to create a sense of continuity throughout the length of the boulevard by removing the existing barriers and to expand the field of view. Furthermore, turning hardscape into softscape could improve the microclimate of the area by allowing the ground to breathe more, as well as rainwater to drain naturally. Lastly, upgrading the existing housing units could improve the quality of life and also the sustainability, meet the energy sustainability goals that could be beneficial for the local residents.
All right, so hello from my side. Starting with our keywords, we have also really thought about what we want to increase there, or what we want to produce there, or build to make the city part better. And we thought about green stream, roots, and coherence, because those are the three words who really are important to emphasize in the area. And the proposed solutions will revolve around the sustainability of Phokionos Negri and also of the whole area of Kypseli. And small interventions like park and pedestrian zones we added that spread otherwise on the boulevard and will also unite the neighborhood. And also small segregated, overcrowded parts with cars and barriers should be removed. And these obstacles should redesign the streets and allocate cars to organized parking spots, and will scale down also the neighborhood of the uplifting and the living conditions of the people living there. The free parking space is now covered into green areas, adding small natural drainage and small streets, as well as the great plant diversity along the green line of Kypseli. And on Fiogonisniki, the boulevard and overhaul will create the necessary conditions for this space to be able to handle many activities around the surroundings regarding environmental problems. Adding water elements and large accessible green spaces improve the microclimate of the block and of the boulevards. Lastly, also taking into account the backyards of the blocks as well as the upgrading of the buildings and the sustainability measures improves the living conditions of Kypseli and will make the future of Athens and this part of the city cooler and better to live in. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Lena, Nikos and Laura, and we are group number C and are around the area of Tafros station. Tafros, for those of you who don't know, is located southwest of the center of Athens, close to the Filoupapu hill, and it's between our site is between the municipalities of Tafros and Kalathea, and it's also quite close to the Athens district. So the strengths and potentials of our site are the hidden long walls underground. Also, we have a lot of unused spaces in the area, and what is really special about the site is that there is a river actually flowing underneath, the Ilissos River, and right now it's actually covered by concrete, and it's flowing down to the coast. The site also has a few, I would say, or we would say, problems maybe. There is a barrier directly through the site. It is a metro line that is going through and separates kind of the north from the south. On top of that, it is a very dense area, which also is a potential in some way, but it brings a lot of sealed surfaces with it. Then we noticed there is a high individual car use in the area, which also leads to a lot of parked cars. We have high traffic, which also leads to not such a good air quality, and we learned that it is affected by heat island effect, so in summer it gets really hot there, the climate isn't so comfortable there for the inhabitants.
Yes, so we continue with our keywords. First of all, our most important keyword is multi-layered, because we also study the mobility, we recreate the mobility and the green infrastructure and the blue infrastructure of our neighborhood, and also the recreation of the neighborhood with super blocks. After that, our next keyword is permeability, which is like porosity and also the overflowing of the river, which is a very important part of our area. And also the breaking barrier, which is created by the railway, that is with the green line of the metro station. And after that, the green rooftops. Also, our next keyword is the integrated flows that are created by our green axis, that is the riverbed that we regenerate, and also the long walls. We want to give back the memory and also the social housing with the connection with the university, the two green areas that are in our area, and also the water management, because the overflowing and also the connection to the riverbed.
Good, so now we will talk about the layer green and blue infrastructure. Our main idea for this is the creation of a green junction, which you can see in the circle right about in the middle. Yeah, exactly. And this will be or is right now actually already a very important crossing point due to the metro station next to it, where you can pass from the south to the north already. And we identified this point as very important and want to highlight it even more. So it was important for us to renaturate the riverbed, take this potential, and transform the now concrete to a softscape soil material. And this riverbed should be fed by rainwater and also by what we get from our super blocks. This concept will be explained a little bit later by Yorgos. The super blocks provide through their courtyards, through their green roofs, and also through the paths in between rainwater to this riverbed, and this water is partly saved in a how do we say, water tank, thank you, and is then given off slowly to this riverbed. When in summer it becomes a little bit drier, and then it's slowly given off, and also this prevents overflooding because it's not so much at the same time. What else do we have? Oh yeah. We create this green corridor, the one I was just talking about, and another one from the social housing area on the west side to the southeast of the Harikoko University. And these two connected green spaces provide not only a nice meeting point for the inhabitants of the adjacent municipalities, but also very good for the animals that are there because they have opportunity to cross the site. And also we have a fresh air intake from the ocean because the
north is there.
Yeah.
The north is there. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, cooling our green axis.
Yes. Also, our next element is the mobility element. The most important things were the car usage, reducing the car usage, and also the management of the railway, because it is becoming a barrier between, it's splitting this part of the town. So we want to reduce the car usage by creating a mobility hub that has cars and bikes. We want to improve, and also the Greeks don't usually bike, so we want to introduce this kind of usage. So we created many bike lanes, a fast bike lane that goes to the train station, and the other ones are the secondary bike lanes. After that, about the railway, we decided to create above the railway another line, another path, a green path for the pedestrians and also for bicycles. And with this axonometric that we have on right down, it shows the creation of this path above the railway.
The formation of the super blocks through the combination of 4 polykatikia blocks allows for the establishment of a new system of mobility and green and blue infrastructure. The proposed design can act as a catalyzer for further development of adjacent areas.
Yes. Our concept is this twin nature and culture linearity of Ilissos stream and long walls and metro line as a dynamic spine, regenerating a network of green spaces through super block, channeling the prevailable northeast winds into urban cooling ducts to climate, microclimate and climate change, establishing continuity of mobility, reachability and permeability.
So, hello, we have to work on Kalirois Junction. The three keywords is islands of our vision. It's islands, oases, and stitches. So, Kalirois Junction is one of the most important traffic junctions of the city of Athens. Here crosses the absolutely straight highway Sigru, and the road Kalirois is the former place of which a river used to flow and which is still visible today, the Ilissos River, through a natural shape. Although Sigru is positively known as the road on which one can drive to the sea in only 10 minutes, it is immediately noticeable that the traffic axis cut the districts into 4 quarters. As a pedestrian, it's difficult to cross these roads and one quickly becomes aware of the limits. While cars sometimes drive on up to 10 lines, as a pedestrian you have to walk through narrow and dark underpasses. A natural connection no longer exists. In the immediate surroundings of the crossroads, important modern architecture and cultural sites are located, such as the FIX, National Museum of Modern Art, the Insurance Building by Mario Botta, or the Ondas Foundation. However, these large-scale architectural buildings offer little to the residents, except from beautiful sight, of course. Otherwise, many buildings stand empty along these intensively trafficked streets because the pollution from exhaust fumes and noise is too intense, and this is little to no recreational space.
Yeah, so we heard that this neighborhood has a big problem and it's about traffic, but like this big problem is also its biggest chance, and we really tried to find a way to make this space, which is at the moment really just designed for cars, for everyone, for like also pedestrians and for bicycles and for stores at the Sigru. Yeah, and that's what we tried, and we tried to build up oasis, as we mentioned here at, yeah, probably you can point it out, at the Kaliroi junction afterwards, because the street is going down there anyway, and we keep it down, and above it we want to have like a really nice green area which functions as a heart of this, yeah, of this part of the city and really connects it here. And we also found different other possibilities to connect the city there. We found out that Sigru is a very big street, and we could easily remove some of the lines and, yeah, replace it with other stuff, with its has a spatial potential, and through this we really want to stitch this axis together, and that's what you can see in the plans then again as well. And yeah, it's just like here we did that for example, but the Kaliroi is quite long, and we want to have those islands, those green nice islands, at different points as well. Yeah. Something else to add? No, it's fine. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello and welcome today. Thank you for being here. I am Jason. This is Yanis Evangelia. The fourth member is Alicia. Today she couldn't be here, unfortunately. So our site was Akademia Platonos. It is a neighborhood that has a strong character with collectivities and a strong community. It is very well known because of actually the ancient Academia of Plato's. It is very close to where we are sitting right now, but even if it has such a close proximity to the city center, its connectivity with the archaeological spaces and the activities in the city center, it has a very bad connectivity with it. Due to the bad infrastructure, due to the chaotic circulating system, for example, many dead ends. Also, a negative aspect of its current situation is the environmental downgrade due to the industrial uses that are currently being situated in this area. But at the same time, this is also a great advantage of the Plato's Academy, because the park and actually the surrounding area, the surrounding area of the Plato's Academy is an area that could be useful and actually become a big green space for Athens.
So our goal is to activate the area through a gradual process, taking into consideration the community that is very active in the area, the existing uses, and also inclusion. So We are trying at first to extend the park to a bus station that is going to be vacant soon, that is placed on the Kifissos Avenue, that is a main road for Athens. So in that way we will create a new metropolitan entrance to the park, but also remain in the neighborhood scale on the part of the housing units. Also, we are trying to connect all those landmarks, the metro, the theaters, the archaeological spaces that are proximal to the area, by at first pedestrianization and generally bringing the nature on the roads and outside of the park in order to blend in with the city.
So, our long-term vision is based on a larger expansion of the park, which will finally occupy a very big plot of land in our existing area, reaching out to Kifissos Avenue/river. And this is something that we would like to do. We would like to highlight the existing stream in our area, but also highlight as much as we can Kifissos River. Moreover, we would like to restore the olive grove that used to exist since ancient times in the area of Eleonas, so that it can co-function with a neighboring agricultural university, and generally to promote a sprawl of the vegetation through to several directions of the city. Another important aspect of our vision is the inclusion of different groups, of different uses, in terms of coexistence. In this direction, we are trying to incorporate in our vision the existing mosque in the area and to combine it with a multicultural market, so that different population groups that exist today in our area can sell their products there and meet, so like to bring different actors together. And we would also like to include students in our and other population groups in our housing units, and also we're concerned about the relocation of the activities that we remove, so we'll try to combine the existing recycling and repairing activities with innovative startups and new concepts for the production of innovative products.
Also, the character of our intervention has a slow and gradual process, because we don't want to be hostile to the current users and the current industries that are situated there. So our, let's say, master plan and our vision is not spotted just in the next few years, but in the long term. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, this is Katerina, Joanna and Philip, and as you may have already guessed, this is the Age of Piraeus, our site that, well, we had the chance to investigate for this workshop, and it is a complex site that it is occupied by a lot of urban voids, liminal spaces, and scar issues that shape a huge gap between the west and the east, and we have also the highway, which forms a natural border that cuts out the transition to the sea. So we have concluded that this site is dysfunctional by itself, and we summed up 3 keywords for our first steps towards the journey of transformation, which are condenser, lifeline, and land escape.
Yeah, and in order to meet all the several things on that site that are very specific and very complicated and very complex, we have several interventions that we want to propose. So we're starting by wanting to overcome that infrastructural scar that traverses the area, the highway. It reaches up to 12 lanes at some part, and which is really huge. And so we propose to overspan it with a superstructure that spans over 200 meters and connects the northern city parts towards the shoreline. We want to make sure to interconnect the several city parts that are adjacent to that area, because they are completely shut off from each other. There's Moscato on the eastern side and Piraeus on the western side, and they just don't connect in any way. In that superstructure, we want to place several functions. There should be a park and ride level, because this is an actual planning proposal to that site. It should also include the train station of that area, which is Neo Faliro train station. And on top, we want to implement a recreational deck that is meant for leisure activities. There's a big green park along the side. It's called Peace and Friendship Park. There's lots of sports facilities in that park, but they are chronically underused and lack of a little care. So we want to take those sports facilities and place them on top of our superstructure. By that, we can renaturalize that whole green area in the south of the premises. Also renaturalize the beachfront, because that could easily develop as an attractive beach for all Athenian people. And also, there's one other very important part. The river Kifissos estuary is right next to the basketball stadium. And it is tamed by stiff concrete walls. We also want to renaturalize that in order to create a climate-responsive landscape. And also on the eastern side of the premises, we can find, hopefully in the near future, a new recreational waterfront park designed by the officers of Renzo Piano that is supposed to come in the next decade, I guess. Probably. Then we have the soccer stadium in the very north of the premises. It is in the middle of a vast concrete wasteland, vast parking lots. There's a complete absence of human life there. Nobody walks, nobody talks. And we want to give back meaning to those premises and implement a reproductive urban landscape in order to strengthen the resilience of those two city districts in terms of food, water, and energy production. And we want to do that by implementing a rainwater treatment plant, urban agriculture, and also some solar panels. And this sums up all the intentions that we have for the site. Thank you for your attention.
For the work they have presented here, take in mind that everything began on Monday morning, and they had first to know Athens. They are not all of them studying here in Athens. They had to put together ideas and the understanding of the place. And then they had to work with the key words and the sketches to have criticism from tutors and professors who sometimes have been sharp, mostly on Wednesday evening. Then today they are presenting the result of a fast-track analysis and synthesis in city planning. The 6 sites we have selected, the tutors, the 6 sites are, most of them, 5 of them, all around the historical center of the city, the Academy of Plato and Kypseli, Alexandra's Avenue, Kalirois Interchange, and Tavros dead point in between, a highway, a river, and a metro station, and then the harbor, Piraeus. All these places, sites, are very different, and they are making a selection of typologies which are, let's say, urban problems, urban problems which are asking us to face the inner urban landscape. That's the main theme of sustainable urbanism, and trying to respond to these 6 typologies, we are presenting a kind of toolbox for working in the city. We have all kinds of problems. The problem of the interchange of Kalirois, where you have actually a highway, a river, and 2 neighborhoods which have been almost separated with infrastructure, is a real problem when we have to live in the city, but completely different with the problem of working together with an archaeological site like the Academy of Plato, in between industrial infrastructure with no inhabitation, and then the will or the wish to link this peripheral archaeological site with the central one, which is the city center of Athens, and believe me, it's not easy to do. Working with the Kypseli neighborhood, you have to answer the problem of how to deal with an old stream of water, which is now a very long linear kind of square, urban square, actually a real urban public space, which has on the top another square which will be a metro station and will change the whole area, improving economic, commercial, cultural activities. Everything is going to change. Then Alexandra's Avenue, it's not the avenue. The avenue is in between a stadium, which is going to move, and refugee housing, which is not anymore the housing of refugees, the High Court, the police station of the whole Athens, and the idea of linking a green hill to a neighborhood, crossing that urban avenue, urban boulevard, which is the Alexandra's boulevard, but how to cross it, how to put together both sides, how to offer a public space to the city, a public space which is on 2 boats, both sides on the avenue. Then Tavros is a very special area. We call it Tavros, but maybe most of you have never been there, because it is a no man's land. It is next to the hill of Philopapos, but you are never making a comparison in between what's happening next to the hill and on the hill. Tavros is a metro station, but this metro is an open-air line, a railway. Then you have the highway, which has the river of Ilissos underground, and then you also have a deviation of the river to help overloading of water, rainwater towards the sea, which is crossing the neighborhood, and also an aerial street, which is landing in the middle of everything. The area is rather open to wild parking. It's the meeting point of 3 municipalities, Athens, Kalithea, and Tavros, and that's why, because of, let's say, the autonomy of the mayors and the municipalities, that no one of the 3 municipalities is taking care of the void in between them, where infrastructure has destroyed neighborhoods and has made access to the hills and the green area almost impossible. You cannot cross. You cannot cross the railway, you cannot cross the streets and the highway. There are borders, barriers, it's impossible. So you have either to to accelerate with your car or take the metro, but you cannot walk. And these are problems quite important for the city making. We should discuss, and we are going to discuss in some minutes. But there was another last site. The last site was Valium Bay, where Kifissos River is meeting the seafront, where Piraeus has a nice overview over the Gulf of Valium, but also where we have produced one of the best spaghetti reaching the sea, highways, speeds, cars, making something like that to land in front of sport facilities, a stadium, Olympiacos Stadium, and then a basketball arena. Again, Olympiacos, and they were the winner during the week to go to the Final Four of Europe. Right there, too many people for a very short period of time. Nothing happens there except cars going through. But you are in the front of the mare, of the sea. You are having people who inhabit right behind you, and in front they cannot join the seafront. It's not easy to give answers to this problem. We cannot solve the problems right now, but we have to put together the means, the method, the toolbox to address these urban public space, let's say, conflicts, and also to address, as the academy that we are, to the practitioners, practice, which are next to us. You are going to be the praxis in the next years, and administration, who decides for everything. We are glad to welcome the rector of the Technical University of Athens. It's the right time now to offer our rector, Andreas Boudouvis, the floor for the welcome.
Dear colleagues from NTUA, dear students, dearest host, Dean Tourniquetes, it's always a pleasure to welcome our guest at this historic site of our university and this elegant building, the AVerof building, and this particular room, the Kαυταντζόγλου room, more so when it comes along with endeavors of architects, and even more so when it involves students in action, like in the masterclass workshop, the Athens Futures. Well, I read Panagiotis, the long version of the brochure of the workshop, and I tried to grasp the essence of the vision associated with the toolboxes for sustainable urban transformations. In doing so, I ran into the case studies, the particular locations of interest of your group in the city of Athens, and Alexandra's Avenue and the Kypseli Quarter were my favorites since I spent quite some time of my youth in both areas. I read about Alexandra's Avenue. I read from the brochure. The challenges and the potentials of the site are therefore big, and I read in the closing paragraph to rethink issues such as connectivity, mobility, and sustainability. Well, I'm looking forward to the outcome of this rethinking because I'm, attached to this place. The same for Kypseli, especially with regard to the need, as I read in the brochure, to create heat island effects and green corridors within the quarter. I hope that you can achieve that even at the level of the design. Well, I hope you enjoy the masterclass, have a good time at the city, and my best wishes for bright futures for Athens and beyond. Thank you.
invite all participants to begin with math, but also Tassos Roidis, who is the heart of this workshop, let's say the maestro for organizing everything. He will sit next to me as moderator. Then, looking to the list, alphabetical order, there will be Philemetos Andrianopoulos, Elisabeth Bariani, and here, who is representing town hall in the municipality of Athens and sustainable mobility areas. One of the owners, Patras, Panita Karamanea from Crete. Now we are trying to discuss about what we have seen and maybe not yet well understood, but we are going to visit the show later on, and this is going to help you, all of you who are here, to point to the real answers to the problems. But now we are going to set a lot of questions which are addressed to tutors, people who are trying to teach how to make a city sustainable, how to address the problems of the city, how to train students to do so, and also open the discussion with administration as well, why not? And we are going to do so together with Tassos Roidis. Tassos is, let's say, the bridge in this workshop, because he was trained here in Athens, in the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki as an architect. Then he moved to Munich, where he is collaborating in the chair of sustainable urbanism, and in a way he understands very well how they think about the city and how we are doing. Let me say that you are doing very well. Thank you. So I'm offering you now the speech and the floor.
Thank you very much for this opportunity that we have to be here all together. Maybe also thank you to everybody who collaborated in this.
Try to address that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rector, that you're here with us.
Exactly.
And everybody. Okay, I'm not also. Okay. Yeah. So I have to talk in this direction. Good. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here, Mr. Rector, everybody, and of course, thank first of all Panagiotis Tournikiotis for this collaboration, which is a long one now, and we're trying to understand together the problems of the city. We're apart from this workshop that we try to establish, which is part of a bigger research project that we are doing in the Technical University of Munich with the chair of Mark Michaeli, which is called Sustainable Urbanism. So we're trying to find sustainable solutions for the future of the city or for problems of the city. And Mr. Norbert Klink, who was also tutor of this workshop, we're closely collaborating and trying to establish also a network of younger academics, but also already established ones, so that we can also create this bridging in contemporary problems of the city. Maybe a quick thank you to all the tutors of the workshop first.
And we should not... We have Athina Vitopoulou.
No, this is exactly, Christos Kritikos, because I wanted now to say that people that are not here is Athina Vitopoulou, Christos Kritikos, who are sitting with us.
And
Norbert Klink, of course, as I mentioned, and everybody who is sitting on the panel who contributed in this workshop in a very innovative way. And it was, thank you very much, everybody, for doing so, because it's not, so to say, so profound that everybody would take the time and participate in that. So thank you. And of course, Mrs. Bariani, who is part of our book publication. We're preparing a publication right now, which will come out next year, which will also see problematics of the city from an interdisciplinary point of view, together with Norbert Klink and Mark Michaeli. Next year, we will talk more about this. So, we thought together with Panagiotis Tournikiotis how to also create a bridging from this Students' workshop that it's been a very intensive one, and we tried somehow to push the students forward to create visions for the city which are not applicable tomorrow, but maybe in 30 years, or at least can create some ideas for the city. And the bridging to Mr. Josep Bohigas, as Mark said before, which is already from the city of Barcelona, which is already in the process of regeneration with some very successful examples regarding public space. And I think the collection of the people that we have here could also help us understand a bit more the processes that happen between the academic context to reach the administrative level with the bridging of the praxis. So maybe my first question would be for the academics. And maybe I will start with you, Mrs. Paka. Maybe together with Mark as well. What can academy offer to the city and to processes that follow the city?
Well, we are trying to research and innovate and produce knowledge and cutting-edge solutions for addressing the new conditions that are being formed in the city and which become very pressing. Right now we are in front of a big challenge to respond to this cataclysmic climate change and address energy issues, inequality issues, migration, raise of city, urban populations, try to create public space that could host and address all these new conditions. So we are striving, we are studying, we exchange knowledge with other academic institutions, and it is sad, but sometimes this knowledge that is being produced does not reach out in the administrative framework of the city. And actually we have a very big responsibility of communicating what we can achieve in theory and see how this can be applied. Of course, students that are getting out of our schools, our practitioners are, of course, working within this frame. But I think we should do more to make this process faster. So at our school, what we're trying to do is through research projects, try and collaborate with the administration of the city, the planning departments, work together, do workshops, have meetings, make joint programs, and show to the students that this is the actual field, professional field, where one day they will have to collaborate either as external practitioners or as public employees within the administrative. I mean, it's a very hard thing to achieve because we don't know much of the bureaucracy that these people are striving with funding issues, with creating something that is really a must now, create a bottom-up processes, planning processes, address the public, and of course, when we are coming in contact with administrative networks of the city, planning networks, we have a chance to be more efficient in what we're teaching and in having a clearer view, because we don't know many of the real issues that people working in the administration are very much aware of and struggling.
Maybe I pass it on to Mark. I ask Now, how is the collaboration with the administration if you get, because you work with administrations maybe of smaller municipalities in Germany, and you also do real case laboratories in Germany. And do you get an agenda from your side, from the administration, when they reach out to you and say, hey, we want to collaborate, this is our agenda? Or do you, how is the process running, maybe in comparison, so to say, between the two countries? Could you maybe describe us a bit? And how do you also deal with it as an academic to help communities create more sustainable futures and ideas?
Okay, so there are several questions now. And I would start with the first one, which you raised, when you said, what has the academy to offer? And yes, I completely agree. University and academy, and especially the technical universities, have something on offer, which is knowledge, right? Knowledge on solutions. However, I think the most important part, what we have on offer, is talents and power. So this is why I really like to work with the students, because the students really want to change the world. And so we really have to give them the opportunity to see what's going on in the world, but not by simulating these things in the academic bubble and saying we play as if we know about administration, but really exposing the students to the real case so that they see, okay, we don't know everything, but we slowly start really to understand something about the principles, about the challenges. What are we doing at Technical University in the so-called Entwurfslabor, which is actually, if you translate it literally, it's design laboratories, but it's a kind of link between universities and the cities. Yes, there are cities which are coming with a very, very prominent question, saying we have a problem about new formats of residential models in the city. Can you help us with that? Then we agree with them about the project, and then we forget about these questions which are raised by the cities. And then we're developing our own questions. So we're accepting them and saying, yes, we work with you on this project, but we also work on our own agenda. And the agenda is really to give the students an insight. So we always accept a project only, not if they come with a lot of money. I'm not interested in this. But we are accepting a project if we see a chance in a kind of didactical model or educational model to give the students the possibility to look really behind the scenes. We do this typically in design classes of 15 weeks to half a year, sometimes 2 courses, the whole thing. Where the students do also kind of fast-track design and, hey, you guys, you did really well for the first week. I really have to say this. And we can see from the plans that these projects are not finished. They are not solutions for the city of Athens. But you experience that in this fast track, you run into certain things which are very important. Like, for example, if you look at the Kypseli thing, right? You also understand this, that you have to qualify not only the space, but also look into the roads running to the side, the networks. You understand that maybe the metro works which are done in the moment is once in a lifetime chance really to do also something on the surface. And this is so important that the students not only learn how to design graphically, this is something we can simulate very well in university, but also to understand what is the larger context. What are the processes behind, the stakeholders behind? And this is why I'm saying, hey, let's collaborate, but not being a client of the city, contractor, just saying, well, you can solve this or that question for us. Okay, so last question you had is, what could be the benefit for the city? Because they're always expecting solutions, right? That would be perfect for them. But what I learned over the last projects for smaller and larger cities in Germany, in Switzerland, in Netherlands, in Denmark, in other places, is that the cities really love to have these ideas from the students, even if they are not too developed, because they deliver the images, and with these images you can go to the broader public and really discuss things. So what is acceptable? Who will oppose it, etc.? And you will learn, students, that not everybody is happy with this policy of not having cars in the city or so, right? But it's good to produce these images, to go to the process and to say, well, if we don't have cars, maybe this or that is better.
And this is very helpful for the cities to have these images of the students, not by professional planners, and to discuss it.
Thank you. Now we have three quite renowned architects with us also, who are also bridging the academy and the praxis. You have won many competitions, you have produced exhibitions, so you're also extending from the academic context, and you also have your own practices, and you have also a significant contribution in the production of public space and the urban regeneration processes that are happening in the city, right now at least. Could you maybe tell us a bit, maybe I will ask Panos first, could you tell us a bit how do you maybe try to draw also some elements that are produced within the academy to start implementing them in praxis? I mean, this is actually a question that applies to all three of you, and maybe you can also answer it individually if you want.
This is not, of course, a very direct process of a passage between academia and the praxis. I think mostly it has to do with the way of thinking and the way of understanding things that happen in the city and discussing the futures of the city. You know, one of my favorite quotes about the future is, I think it's attributed to Paul Valéry, which says that the future is not what it used to be. And what I want to say is that we started this week with Panagiotis telling us about the futures as they were imagined in the 20th century, which were all positive futures, visions about what may happen and to make cities and life in the cities much better. Now we live in a period that things have changed. People are afraid of the future. People very often think that the future may be bleak. The city will be full of inequalities. Climate change is a threat for everybody else. People are very hesitant to accept proposals by architects and politicians. And this has changed a lot of the situation in architecture, both academia and both practice. How you can convince people about your tools and your ideas that would make the city better. I think that one important role and one important opportunity that we have, people in academia, and especially the people that we share our time between academia and praxis, is to find the correct means of communication and the correct tools to convince society, convince citizens that we have the tools to actually give solutions to these problems, to bridge, to find new methodological tools that find out which the exact problems are and how the solutions, the visions that we propose are related to these problems. I think that something that this workshop that finished today has succeeded is to establish this methodology to explain to our young students. I found out that it was very successful, the way that in such short period of time they identified specific problems in the city, and in a couple of days we found specific strategies that in a very convincing way they proposed specific ways to make Kypseli expand the green corridor of Kypseli to a network of smaller green corridors all around the city. We show an example of how Ilissos, the deviation of Ilissos could be transformed to a green corridor into artificial river. Ideas like this, which were established in such a short period of time, I think are very convincing in this way that they can make people trust us more, trust academic practitioners, that they are not trying to sell their ideas or to cheat people, but they have a specific methodology and the breadth of knowledge that can actually produce a better future, a future that is not going to be bleak, but is going to make lives better for people in the 21st century. So I think that this was, I'm not replying exactly to this, of course, don't worry. But I think that this was one of the things that, to my point of view, made this workshop very productive and very successful. And I was very happy, of course, to be part of it.
Thank you also. I mean, we can continue this conversation because I think yes, it started off from an academic workshop. There are ideas produced. Maybe we can talk a bit more about how also ideas produced in offices, like yours, Telemache, that you recently won the competition for the city center of Athens, for 3 major squares, and now you're also redesigning Ermou Street, the extension towards Αγίων Ασωμάτων. Thank you, Elizabeth. But also you, Panita, with the competition that you won in Lykavitos, also last year, I think. And this going also towards implementation. Maybe then you can also explain us now how, from the practical point of view, you are also, how the administration is reaching out to you, and how the ideas that are being produced in architectural competitions, starting also from a student's level, so students also start with competitions, and we always idealize, of course, things in a competition that then need to be somehow implemented. Can you maybe explain us a bit also how this communication and the administrative part is also maybe collaborating with the architect, so if we do want to take it a step further?
Πιο δυνατά και κοίτα από εκεί.
A bit more.
This trio that you have described, academia, practice, and quite recently also administration. First of all, I would like to say that I am very much convinced, especially after yesterday's night inauguration of the participation of our school with the studio that we did here for Aristoteles Axis in Thessaloniki. Talking first of all about academia, I'm convinced that even undergraduate study studios may be quite intensive, may have quite intensive research outcomes, not only for educational purposes, but for the city itself, become collective research about the city's real problems. And even, as I said, undergraduate studies. About practice, I wouldn't try to answer first your question, what do I draw from academia in order to try to bring it into my practice, but the opposite, in a way. The accumulated experience of practice is indeed an incredible channel that may strengthen education. And I'm not talking especially about the realized projects that are usually for every one of us quite smaller in scale, but mainly about the non-realized projects, which are a lot. And they are usually proposals in architectural competitions. This may have a huge experience type that aids our teaching, I believe. So even if all these projects are useless in a way till the moment, for me they are very, very useful in order to deal with academia, with what we should get the students involved. So the last thing, my last experience about the project that you mentioned with the administration, projects of this nature about the city, mainly projects about the urban condition, are so complex, and because they are complex, they are also of a very delicate nature.
Meaning delicate, I mean that there are many factors that are involved in their possible realization, mainly cost issues or the extreme multiplicity of the interested parties, that they can easily not be realized at all. So, how you deal with administration and the way you are trying to get these projects into reality may also involve some executional, I would describe them, compromises that at the end are not compromises at all. They are creative pragmatism. And that's how I see our relationship as practitioners and academicians to our connection with administration and possibly the realization of these projects. Pragmatism, though, is something that should be involved in all the three different fields.
That's a really good point.
I also want to say something on that. I think that the most valuable element of this gathering here today, and of all this week, is the opportunity that we had to collaborate and to belong to a common think tank on the sites of Athens and on the futures of Athens. And to listen to each other, to try to research on the sites, to change and exchange ideas and experiment and make errors and then change our minds. And this sense of belonging to a think tank that we all want to transform the city and the problems of the city gives us the opportunity to have this conversation today and to communicate some ideas. So I think that one of the most important elements of teaching or of being in the academia or of trying to create something in your own practice is, first of all, to experiment and to try to transform, and then to communicate it. We need continuous state of communication, I think, with the administration. Even if it would be just to change and exchange ideas, or to have to start constructing a common ground of beliefs about the city, or of maybe possible tools of changing the city towards a common vision, not being apart or not being in different directions. I think this is the most valuable target or purpose or opportunity that all these workshops and gatherings and exchange of ideas should have. Because if we're talking about transformation that we all want, we are in the most crucial era of our time that has to do with climate change and with environmental decline. So transformation is already here. And we have to run in order to be able to help the city in a positive way and insert the most that we can, ecological solutions, naturally based projects, try to add porosity in the city in a structural way, in a materiality way, in a networking way. So in order to end up and decide all together that we agree, we should have an open stream of communication all the time, between ourselves, with the practice, with the administration mainly, in order to be able at the end to have common ideas, common ground, and common targets and gestures, the same processes.
Which brings us, I mean, you created the perfect bridge now to hand over to Elisabeth Bargiani, who is also the Sustainability and Resiliency not officer, but you're in the Department of the Sustainability and Resiliency for the city. So maybe you could also tell us a bit what is actually not only the goal that you have in mind, but also if these think tanks could actually be a potential for the city, and how could we maybe also extract elements from not only, of course, such ideas of student work, which is always very valuable, but also maybe from academic research, which maybe flows in your processes.
Yes, and all this amazing work to us, all sites chosen, and the work that you've done is really amazing, and we'd really like to see it shared with us in a leaflet or something.
You will get it for sure.
That'd be great. So, because there are, and we also have, especially regarding the Kypseli project and the Platos Academy, there are also, I could give you links through Tassos to have a look on what we are doing and try to compare, get the databases and the baseline of what we've got in the city, to get your research and your work progressed if you need to in the future. So regarding the administration and how it works with the real practice, with the practitioners and the academia, our department, the Resilience and Sustainability Department, is probably one of the few in the city that breaks down the silos of the public sector in the city. So we work horizontally, and we try to bridge these difficulties that all of you mentioned that are happening. Of course, the bureaucracy cannot be solved very, very easily. We've done, for example, one project regarding... Yes, we've done a project regarding the natural capital financing facility with the cooperation and funding from the European Investment Bank. And we had an innovative way of working inside and outside the city, which has not happened before for the city of Athens. It was a project coordination unit with people from various specialities and departments of the city, specialists in their own thing, how to get permissions for the greening, how to get permission for the planning, how to get traffic permissions, how to get these kind of things that kind of block and always will block the way, and especially mobility is a huge issue right now. So this has worked very well, and our department as well, which we kind of monitor and manage with the director of Common Space, the process, and it has been really helpful. And I could provide the link, and people could also have a look about this project, which also gives a common language that comes back to what you were saying about, what is the framework? How do we actually design? What does the client want? What do you want? What is their vision? And what we say now, especially now that the new climate action plan for the city will come out, it is the climate crisis that we have, and it's measures that we need to urgently take, that we should have taken earlier. Yes, and it's a climate emergency that I think it will, it's what we will need the city to be driven by. So it either has to do with common spaces, it has to do with greening, which is a big issue for the city. We don't have enough spaces. We want to increase the green spaces and the green coverage of the city with projects, and we have set out a goal for 2030, for example, and also about equality and accessibility of, how we want, for example, to have 70% of the population of the city to have access in 15-minute walk in the city of Athens, which is very challenging, of course.
Access to public transport or
public green spaces with ecosystemic value. Okay. So that's something that it's challenging for a city like Athens, because it does have, we all experience the difficulties and the bureaucracy that this can cause. But we also do, try to do our own research as well, and we collaborate with various European programs. For example, now we have a program called Reach Out. Please look it out. Athens will be one of the city hubs, and we will have learning modules for practitioners, students, academia, and we will create with the private sector, with companies, innovative companies, some tools regarding climate change and how you actually analyze, evaluate, and make decisions regarding the climate emergency in the city. So, you know, that's a bridge to the academy. Please do join us for that. That'd be really interesting. Yeah? Do I have more time?
If you want to say one more word, yeah, why not?
So
maybe a bit loud. Because I think you don't know if they hear you in the back.
So it's not always easy to, what I really want to say is that there is not a lot of capacity in the public sector to do a lot of diverse things all the time. So, you know, making workshops, talking to the academia and keeping the contact. It's not just having one workshop and then talk about that a year later. It's just keeping the contact and keeping this momentum is something that we as a department try to do a lot because we have an extrovert kind of character against the public sector as we have it, or you usually see it. But we need you know, it would be really nice to make an invitation to students, to people who want to one of the people here that they can come and join and do internships in our office. It would be really nice. A lot of what you said about collecting data or getting the data, we do collect data and we want to...
Do you disseminate this data also to...
We will... listen, now we will publish quite a lot of data.
If you were asking for it.
We will publish quite a lot of climate data soon with the Climate Action Plan. And we have a brilliant colleague in the city of Athens who does the Carbon Disclosure Project, which is, we write down the greenhouse gas emissions, for example. So there is a lot of work coming from the city that will come out soon.
If we want to take all this data now and get some ideas out of it, I mean, you said share the results of this 5 days workshop with us, which maybe could be then valuable if we could combine it with your data and see if projects potentially could come out of it, which indeed would have a more would have a more sustainable future for the city, but also seen in a strategic way. Maybe back to Alkmini, do you, because I know you collaborate a lot with the municipality of Thessaloniki, do you use this data for your research and for actually to see what can we do with it?
Actually, what we do is that we get data in order to shape ideas and visions, and we disseminate data because, for example, regarding climate change, we collaborate with the School of Geology and the Department of Meteorology. So they're working on climate models. So they provide us with data. Actually, we take the initiative to create this network. We as a school, which is work with the municipalities, get them together, work with other departments from the Aristotle University, because we are a big university, we have all kinds of specialties. And this creates a network. So we send students where municipalities do workshops with residents, or if they want to fabricate something, so our students are willing to go and participate. They get this input from people that are out there doing things. I wanted to say something not about data, because we are here discussing, and there are two key words that pop up and are very important. Actually, what we're trying to address, Mark said talent, creativity, okay, apart from knowledge, because we all, and Telemachos said pragmatism. So this is the two poles that we have to make in, to put in contact and let one react, let's say, chemically react. Where is our chemist here? He's gone. React and reinvent things through this reaction, how talent can be informed by pragmatism, and how pragmatism can be changed or adapted through creativity. And this, I think, is very crucial, what we're discussing.
Can I follow up and maybe address to Mark, not only to Mark, because you are talking about talent, we are in a master workshop and we are masters. They are going to become masters in architecture with a lot of creative feelings. And then we are having data which are coming after long research done by specialists. What about the bottom-up idea? What about the people who are going to live into the cities we are creating with our talent? Do they have to be involved, and in which way? In our training, in our administration, in our practice, and maybe in our workshops. What about that kind of bottom-up discussion, Mark?
Well, actually, in Munich, there's a very prominent example in the moment running. It's about two very, very tall towers. And they found out that they will not come to a solution with just a professionals' discussion. So what they did is actually setting up a kind of podium for the people, but it's not a podium which only can discuss, but also can decide about it. So it has its legitimation from a certain process of selecting these people before. And so they make a mix of, let's say, professionals and people living in there. And it was actually relatively successful, but also because everybody accepted that let's say, the layman cannot make every decision. You need some specialists in the field, and I believe in this. Otherwise, I would not be a professor at the university. So I always tell the architects, hey, if you propose something, please be an architect and not somebody who's doing social engineering or something like that. So it was relatively successful, and what was a very, very good byproduct of it, or collateral effect, is that the people also, these laymen, they communicated very different into the larger public. So the larger public was aware of what was going on there and really reflecting what can we do in this project. And this is something which I want to say as an addition also to what Admini and Elisabetta said before. We cannot handle all these projects ourselves when it comes to a green transformation. Only maybe 10–15% are the ones which are done by the city because they have the ground, they have all the legal things sorted out, etc. And the rest of it, 85%, has to be done by the population of the city, on their private grounds, in their gardens, etc., etc. And so, if we really want to make a change here, we need to establish these kind of, maybe think tanks, which not only addressing these very large and prominent projects, but which also think about, and what comes along with it. So, 100,000 green gardens in Athens also may be the basis or the foundation of a green structure. And this is what the more successful larger cities in Europe all follow, this kind of mix of very small intervention on private grounds, simply communicate it to the people so that they understand, oh, wow, this is something I can do. It's so simple. You brought up this very nice project in Gdansk in Poland, where you said, well, they just tell you how to make a rain garden, a sponge garden, with very easy means, and in the end it's beautiful, and you can, and therefore it's desirable for the men in the street, right? And so we have to establish first this kind of think tank, where we can mix big project and small project, how to communicate it. And then I think your proposal to create a kind of permanent think tank is also a nice one, because it allows for something where Elisabeth said we have a problem in the city. She said maybe we do not have the time to think about all these bloomy things, and maybe also to risk failure in our thinkings, etc. So we need the think tank also for positive and productive irritation of the, let's say, the processes which are running anyway in the city. And I think a city which is really aware of that they have to create the future and can create the future, they allow for these kind of interests. Not only giving data and saying, hey, please come back with a solution to us, but really saying, hey, we allow and we support this open discussion where we really can find out what might be the ways. And so I completely support your idea of creating this group which constantly, in studios, with students, in workshops, maybe but even in kind of podia with the public, really talk about the future of Athens. And I think this is the way towards green transformation.
Especially now that we've been one of the 100 cities for climate neutrality and smart cities. So we've been one of the 100 cities for zero emissions and smart cities. So there will be quite a lot of funding that will, I think, not only given to the public sector, but with various forms it will help the citizens to probably be funded for doing projects towards carbon neutrality for 2030. So I think the collaboration is
on its way.
Is on its way, and it's
perfect.
One way.
So, can I continue? Oh, you had a question.
I had a question.
Okay.
To follow up my another
sorry.
Let me introduce our two architects, Panos Dragonas and Tilemachos Andrianopoulos, to the issue of interdisciplinarity in city making. I understand very well that we have been involved in many areas, many sites in Athens where other people, other kind of engineers have designed the city, the interchanges, the way highways are meeting rivers and metros, and we have been disappointed, and we wanted to add something to change the city, changing in a way what they have done. But we have been here working with the city only architects and town planners, people who are trained in schools of architecture. Would you like to invite other kind of people to collaborate in our workshops? What was missing in our teamwork? Should there be civil engineers, traffic engineers, let's say environmental engineers? If we had to enlarge our training, our team, who could be invited or who would be, let's say, necessary to point out the real problems?
First of all, I would like to add something to your previous question about bottom-up. One of the very good experiences that I had in the past as a tutor in urban design was about 10 years ago that I worked in Platos Academy, one of our 6 sites. And one of the things that we did with our students then was that we visited the collectivities in the neighborhood. We discussed with them about what is happening in the neighborhood, because they were very active during this period and very involved in the production of space. And we heard very carefully in their agenda and their vision about the city And we tried to implement the wishes, tried to visualize what they think about this area. And in the end of the semester, we did a presentation in their place, and we showed our ideas, which were based in their proposals, which made them very happy, not because they convinced us, but because we gave a visualization to what their thoughts, their actual thoughts were about their neighborhood. So what I want to say is that we architects are usually tend to work top-down, because we work for the politicians, we work for the capital, we work for the people who have the power. But probably, not all of us, but some of us could have a different role, a role of a mediator between top-down and bottom-up, trying to explain to the politicians what people want and trying to explain to people how things are done. Okay? So this role of the mediator could be valuable in the production of a sustainable city. Regarding the second question, I think that one of the characteristics that the architects that were involved in the production of the city have is that we have a much broader perspective than the rest of the engineers and the people who are involved in the production of space. For example, this project about Ilissos in Tavros was mostly a project that had to rethink the transportation network, which is not our job, and the water management network, which is also not our job. Okay? But I believe that we have a much broader vision than civil engineers and transportation engineers to imagine the future of the city and the way that the city can become better. So I think that we need some advice. I think that it would be very useful in such a workshop to have some very focused lectures about specialists about transportation or about water management. I cannot imagine them being involved in such a short period of time in tutoring, but some pieces of information would be valuable to the students so that they know better what they can do and what they cannot do in such a short period of time.
Maybe Telemachos first, and then you after.
Okay, we had a very intense debate yesterday about especially this junction, Kalirois junction. And I have to admit, we visited the site on Monday with Professor Kouchoutis. I have not been recently there. And I admit that after the site visit, I was absolutely depressed while going back to the office about how difficult the problem is and how bad the situation is in terms of urban design in this junction. So the problem really there is infrastructure and how exactly infrastructure is designed or was designed. And the problem about that design is that the team that designed it didn't have any architect in exposure. So this is a double-sided problem. Of course, infrastructure leads to architecture in the city. And it is impossible that architects are not included in its design, and usually this is the case. We are not included in its design. I agree with Panos that perhaps we have what he calls a broader vision. This could also pose a kind of danger. Sometimes architecture students, with our guidance also, think that they can solve anything by themselves. And usually they try to put this kind of problems under the carpet in order to have an even very impressive vision about the future of the city. But this is impossible because it's quite complex. We have to have in mind that multidisciplinarity is totally necessary. Totally necessary. We may have this capacity of orchestrating the whole, but we need other disciplines. even in this workshop, and exactly about this case of Kalirois Junction, I myself felt the need to have by our side a traffic engineer that in a way would consult us about the idea that we had about partially covering the junction itself. So, multidisciplinarity is necessary if infrastructure in the city is designed with thousands. This is catastrophic and it is indeed endangered and something that is quite unusual, but also the opposite, especially in schools of architecture, thinking that architects are gods that can create everything successfully and simply without the guidance of others is also a danger. It's a continuous.
Mark.
Yeah, we had this discussion too, and you said before I'm Dean of Studies for the entire engineering branch of TUM, which is 43, I think, different study programs, and there are 43 different communities which think that they are God and can do it. And this is why we decided at the School of Engineering and Design to come up with an interdisciplinary teaching model, which is not about bringing even more professors from the different fields in, but mixing the students in project work. And maybe we overstress it if we go for a workshop and saying, and you also have to look to mobility, etc., etc. But the green transformation, ecological transformation, climate resilient transformation projects of the city are of particular delicacy, because you said it, we do not have the room for planting the trees. We can maybe find some room if we cooperate with the mobility guys, because the mobility guys might say, yes, we also can deliver on a different design of the road. But until now, we only optimized it to make it more comfortable, more safe, and did not look, for example, for saving space so that we can plant a tree or that we can drain some stormwater or something like that. So the engineers are really fervently looking for the architects to tell them the stories about this complexity of layers of the and then the urban designers. And so this is why I completely support what you said about we have to think as architects, but we also need to come up with ideas about exchanging our ideas with the others, and also helping them not to optimize only in one direction. And this is what a lot of engineers typically do. And the city is not like this. The city is complex. Yeah. But we did a kind of model project over 2 years now, and my message to take is, don't mix too many disciplines on the level of the professors, but mix the students. It's much better. Yeah?
Maybe one last question, because we are going to shift shortly towards Barcelona, and I will address to the two ladies, not to you exactly, but maybe you as well, depending. This is a workshop with the title Inner Urban Landscapes. What is a landscape? You are a landscape architect, in a way. Landscape, in my mind, English landscape, English gardens, French gardens, and Japanese as well. The landscape means the nature, or urban landscape means green cities. What's the meaning of the green in the city? Are we going to make our public space life in between the private, in between buildings, life in urban gardens, or urban landscape can be done without trees? Panita. And why not Alcmini? I'm talking to Panita first because he's doing a perfect work together with herbs, trees, and whatever is natural. And now she's working in the middle of the city.
Yes, but that's the point. To understand how all this works, all the landscape features, let's say, all the natural features, in order to implement them in the city network. Landscape, in this sense, is a relationship to nature. It's not nature by itself in the countryside, far away from city life. The challenge is to try to find the way to implement and create inputs of natural elements.
Now we are mainly talking about collaboration between us, and of course we project everything in the city of Athens and other cities, Munich, Barcelona, etc. But what's the biggest hope for Athens, for the future?
What's the biggest hope for Athens?
All Athenians may answer.
It's the asset is
you
the
seem
people.
hopeless.
If there is hope.
Maybe it's a hard one.
I think the hope is the people. You know, if people are get more involved, yes, more active, and they demand more, and they are trained better, and they, you know, it could be, you know, they would also be the next people to take decisions, and they will be people that they would teach our children better in terms of, you know, it has been very inspiring with the students here that, to me, they said all the right words. Oh, it's a bullet point they were talking about. You know, it's what the future should be looking at. So that's very encouraging, what the students mentioned in all of the 6 projects they did. And that was really, really hopeful. Thank you.
Maybe that's a nice closing. I don't know if you want to add something, or...
No,
I mean,
this
the
goes back to police is the police.
Cities, it's citizens, indeed. If you ask loudly, yes.
And maybe addressed also to everybody.
Yes, of course. Actually, this is a question for everybody, because you spoke, Mr. Toumikiotis, about collaboration, and we saw also our sites were mainly in the municipality of Athens, but actually seeing topics like a river, Kifissos River, or the mobility, the traffic has come from different directions, and Kifissos does cross the whole greater Athens area. But speaking about collaboration, the governance is fragmented to different municipalities. Is there something we can, or is there a way to collaborate in that sense, in the governance level? Because as far as I can see, maybe personally, there is a great potential in there, speaking about structures such as ecology, rivers, mobility access, which cross the whole greater Athens area. How do you see their potentials or possibilities? Or is that the strength for greater Athens? Is that the weakness?
Well, you're all looking at me, so I have to get that. So, yes, what right now we are doing, well, I will talk about the city of Athens, and this refers to every other city in Greece. So the jurisdictions that the city of Athens have in their boundary limits are not all of it. So, for example, a small example, some parks do not belong to the city, let's say, or the underground water is another department like the EIDAP that has to do with that, or the sewage goes to... So, but the end user and the person who needs to go and do the job is the municipality at the end. So there is a lot of legislative action and a lot of talk to the central government and in the level between in order to alleviate some of these issues and kind of have a more smooth transition towards achieving this goal. Especially now in mobility, I think there will be changes regarding the plan about bicycles and what's allowed and not allowed, and who will be doing that and who is responsible to what. So this will be governance transformation, basically, and it's slowly happening, and in some cases it's happening quite fast.
Maybe we can find out now how fast it happened in Barcelona.
It's the time to shift to Barcelona. We have to thank all of you for being together with us in that panel discussion. He asked about hope for Athens. We were asking about Athens' future. Let's say about hopes for Athens. It's plural. Many futures, many hopes. Thank you for being here. We are not stopping. It's a non-stop event. We are going to see it. Mark is introducing Josep Bohigas.
Yes.